All right. Appreciate you meeting with me today, Harry.
Thanks for having
I know
me.
your time's very valuable. Wanted to get a little information from you and kind of give some background on who you are, how you got started in kind of doing the real estate law thing and what you guys specialize in. And I'm sure you've got a couple of hot button topics you'd like to discuss today. So
Sounds great.
tell us about yourself and what you guys do here at
So I've been doing closings for 29 years, and my dad started the firm, then my brother joined in, and we were basically a residential closing shop where home buyers that were going to occupy their house would come here, we would do their closing, and off they would go. Probably 20 years ago, maybe even 25 years ago, I did a closing for a gentleman named Warren Jekyll. Are you familiar with Warren?
I don't know Warren, no.
So Warren comes in, and I just small talk in closings, and when are you moving and this and that, and Warren says, oh, well, actually I'm not moving into this house, I'm going to rent it. And honestly, that was the very first time that it even ever dawned on me that people rent their houses. So I saw Warren another month later, and I said, you going to live in this one or are you going to rent it? And he said, no, I'm going to rent this one too. And it struck me that there's probably a whole bunch of Warren Jekylls out there in the world, and if we can figure out how to cater to them, then they're kind of like a mutual fund. You spread your risk and
Keeps coming back.
repeat and come on in. And so we've invested a lot of time and energy and education trying to figure out what the needs of the investors are. And now almost half of our business is real estate investors, which is great and healthy. And
Yeah.
when the economy's doing well, they're doing well. When the economy's doing poorly, they're doing weller than well. So
Can the closings continue on when the market
They
crashes,
do.
doesn't it?
They do.
In one form or another. Okay. And so did you always know that you were going to do real estate law when you were going through law school, or is it something you kind of stumbled into?
No, I actually started out in engineering school because my dad said, son, you ought to go into electrical engineering, and I just went, okay, and I got a degree, and I got out and I said, I don't know anything, I got to do something different, I think I'll go to law school. So I went to law school, and when I got out of law school, I thought, I don't know anything, but it's time for me to put on my big boy pants and take a job. So I ended up with my dad and my brother, and couldn't have been a better career move.
So were they the ones that kind of, I guess, eventually led into the real estate field?
Totally Dad.
Yeah.
Dad started it. He graduated from law school, couldn't find a job. He graduated very high in his class, but couldn't find a job, which is not unusual for attorneys. And he started up his own shop, did a little bit of this, a little divorce, a little landlord-tenant stuff, a little of everything. And a loan officer one day came to him and said, why don't you do a closing for me? And he said, what's that? And they explained it, and
Figured
the
it
rest
out.
is history.
Yeah.
And now I've got my daughter coming in to practice with us starting in April.
I saw that, yeah, recently. Just
Yeah.
past the bar?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So did you actually ever use your engineering degree at all?
Nope.
Whatsoever?
Nope. I can flip that light switch better than most because of that electrical engineering degree, but otherwise, no, I'd never used it a bit.
That's an expensive skill right there.
Yeah, I should have got a PE degree and had fun for 4 years.
Right. Okay. Well, I know you want to talk about a couple of things in the real estate industry. I think one of them's investing with your IRA or self-directed
Yep.
investment accounts.
Yep.
You want to kind of dive into that and tell people, what you're seeing in the industry right now, and
Sounds good.
yeah.
So Chris McCarty, who everybody should know, Chris has been doing IRA investment stuff for 20 plus years. And when it came to my attention that this was available, then in order for me to be good to my investor clients, I needed to understand how this stuff works. So now there's quite a buzz out there of investors that have gotten their feet underneath of them, and they understand how to invest, and they're tired of figuring out how to pay the taxes on it. So
Sure.
that's an opportunity for them to avoid having to pay the taxes on the gain of the sale. It just goes right back into their IRA.
Right.
And when they reach the age that they can take it out, they take it out tax-free.
Right. And it's not just with your IRA. There's other
Absolutely.
401ks and stuff like that.
401ks, if you've got young children or young grandchildren, you can do a Coverdale Educational Savings Account, which allows you to do kind of the same thing. You do a deal, it goes back into the account, and as long as it's paid for private high school or college, then no taxes on it ever.
Yeah, that's a nice one too. It's not just for college.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
So what's,
Absolutely.
are you seeing, I guess, what's the big issue that you're seeing right now with the self-directed investments? I mean, is it just people not knowing how to structure it properly, or they're commingling, or what is the...
So the rules are pretty stringent. If you want to understand the rules as it relates to a Roth IRA or a CISA, then there's a book called IRA Wealth. It's written by a guy named Rice. I don't remember his last name, but Books A Million usually sells it because I send people over to pick it up. I know that you can find it on Amazon as well.
Okay.
And it kind of gives you the ins and outs. When I first did my very first deal, I don't know what a stock or a bond is. That's not me. I'm you. I do what you guys do, which is I'm a real estate investor as well.
Right.
And when I did my first IRA deal, it was so cumbersome because in order for me to get the contract signed, I had to prepare the contract. I had to send it to the custodian. The custodian had to review it. They had to read it. They had to send it back. I had to make a request for a $500 deposit. 3 or 4 days later, I'd get. It just was a cumbersome experience.
And it still can be. If you
And it still can be. So what we do now with investor clients is we have them open up their self-directed account. They get their account number, and then we will create for them a trust.
Okay.
So rather than them investing their IRA money in real estate, they invest their money in an IRA trust instead.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on who the custodian is, you may or may not be able to be your own trustee. But if you can't, you just find a buddy that you trust. And at that point, we have a bank account that's local. Checks are here.
Mm-hmm.
The trustee is local. Everything goes a lot more seamlessly that way because then when you're ready to do a deal, everything is here in town and you never have to go back to the custodian.
And so when they set it up that way, the trust is what ends up owning the asset
That's right.
that's purchased.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So when they're doing deals like this, is there, other than setting up a land trust to make it a little bit easier on themselves, is there any other things that they should be aware of in the process of, maybe they're rehabbing it, maybe it's a rental property? That I know there's other rules they have to abide by.
Yeah, there's a bunch of rules, and the rules require you, despite the fact that it's called a self-directed IRA, you're not allowed to actively participate in that investment.
Which means you can't go over there and paint the walls, or
you can't go
do
paint the
management
walls. That's
directly.
exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. It's got to be a passive investment. It can be active in that it is a rehab, but it's passive in that you're hands off. You can say to the contractor, I want this, this, and this done,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't be that contractor. You can't go in and do it yourself.
So can you, if you have a rental property that's in an IRA or any self-directed account, can you manage that investment property directly as long as you're not the one that's actually doing the work on the house?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's
So you don't
correct.
have to hire a property manager?
No.
Okay. So what's kind of one of the biggest issues that you've seen in one of these deals recently that just is, light bulb went off and, oh my gosh, I should let other people know about it?
Yep. Commingling, by far commingling. The way the rules work, nobody straight up and down the family tree is ever allowed to benefit, and that includes me. So I can't benefit any way financially from one of these protected IRA deals.
And when you say up and down, you're talking about your parents or your
grandparents,
children?
or my children.
Yes.
That's right.
So brothers, uncles, whatever is
That's
fine.
all safe.
Yeah.
And in my world, my brother is my trustee because he works one door down for me in the office. So I just
Makes
walk
it
over and
easy.
give him a check and he signs it and I'm off and running.
Yep.
But for example, a lot of realtors are investors.
Mm-hmm.
A realtor cannot collect a commission on an IRA deal because they are benefiting personally from the IRA deal.
Okay.
Same thing with a management fee or same thing with a construction fee. You can't collect any of those fees because that's a violation.
Okay.
We also run into issues where the money goes into the account and then the account money gets used for something that it shouldn't be. Meaning, I had a bad month, so I kind of sort of pulled a little money out. I used it for whatever I needed to, and I replaced it back in there. What that does to your account if you get audited, and fortunately there's less IRS audit agents than there have been in a long, long time. But nonetheless, if you happen to get unlucky and you get audited, then it contaminates your entire account.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've been successful and built up money in the account, then all that money is going to be taxable at that point if you do it wrong. So it's pretty important that you're doing it right. Again, get that book, IRA Wealth by Rice. He's pretty good at explaining what the rules are and the do's and the don'ts.
Yeah, so for anybody who doesn't know what commingling is, or just that blew right past over their head, commingling is when you have money that's in a personal account or in one, say, business account, business A, and you have IRA money in another account, and you're mixing those two monies together into a deal that's owned by the IRA.
That's right.
So
That's right.
it's a big no-no.
And we see the same problems as it relates to not an IRA, but just an LLC.
Right.
So if I have an LLC, I cannot use personal money for an LLC deal. I've got to take money, put it from my account
Into
to the
the
LLC
LLC
account
account.
and spend it. That's
Yeah.
right.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's definitely good information to know. I think another topic we were going to get into is wholesaling and the differences between types of contracts and some of the issues that you've been seeing with the hot industry right now.
Yep. So wholesaling is huge. I probably have 2 or 3 new wholesaler wannabes every single week that come in.
Yep.
And I'm happy for them to come in and explain how to do this. You know, a guy came into my office probably 2 weeks ago, and he said, I'm a new wholesaler, and I got my first deal under contract. And I said, that's awesome. Where did you get your contract? He said, I just kind of crafted it from lots of different sources. And I said, all right, so what are we here to talk about today? And he said, well, I got it under contract, and I can't find anybody to take it. And now I don't want to buy it, and I was paying $40,000 for it. The lady, now that I can't buy it from her, she sold it for $35,000, and she wants me to give her $5,000. And I said, let me look at your contract. And she was in fact due from him $5,000 because his contract was not drafted the way it needed to be drafted.
Because he couldn't execute?
Because he couldn't execute, and there was no escape clause in it for him. So he owed the lady $5,000. Now we figured out a sneaky lawyer trick to get out of it, but the moral of that story is join KREIA. It's filled with like-minded individuals that everybody, yourself most certainly included, have an abundance mentality where you know that you stood on the shoulders of somebody else to help you to understand
There's a lot
how
of
to
people
get
to help
there.
me before I got to this point.
Absolutely,
So, yeah.
and now that's your responsibility is to turn it around and do the same thing. We're all abundance mentality people, so just ask. You can't have paralysis by analysis and succeed, but you can't rush to it as well.
And I know that you've offered on multiple occasions, if somebody is unsure of their contract or they don't have a contract, to call your office and you'd be happy to provide one, especially, if you're doing the closing,
Yep.
just to protect that person, that individual.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Yeah, they're free. You can have them. And if you want to tweak them, send them to me. I'm happy to tell you whether I like it or I don't like it. And at least we know that way you're safe.
Right.
Look, it costs me probably 3 minutes of my time to send out contracts and review contracts. And it could have cost that guy $5,000 that he didn't spend 3 minutes of my time, which all of you guys are welcome to 3 minutes of my time.
yeah, we definitely appreciate that.
My
And
pleasure.
your abundance mentality.
My pleasure.
So in that situation, was he trying to assign the contract? Because you can assign contracts and you can double close in
Yep.
wholesale deals.
Yep.
Those are the two main types. What was he trying to do in his situation?
He was trying to do an assignment because there wasn't a lot of meat on the bone.
Okay.
With these transactions, you're absolutely right. We can either assign it or we can do double close. The upside of the assignment is I get 100% of the assignment fee. The downside of the assignment is C in the ABC transaction, B being the investor, the wholesaler, A being the seller, C being the end user. In an ABC transaction, if I'm doing an assignment, I keep it all, but C now knows exactly what I'm making. So if I'm making a lot, C may not be very excited about giving me a big assignment fee.
And if
So-
you didn't tell C in the first place that you're wholesaling this deal and he finds out at the closing table, it could blow up in his face.
It could absolutely blow up in his face.
And I'm sure that's happened before.
It happens all the time. It
Yeah.
happens all the time. When we get C being an owner-occupant buyer, it's almost always a catastrophe.
So that kind of leads into a good discussion about, I know that the Kentucky realtors are trying to get some kind of a law passed where to do wholesales at all in the state of Kentucky, you have to have some kind of license, whether it's, I don't know that it has to be a realtor license, but can you talk a little bit about that and
Sure.
why that's come out?
Sure. It's come out because realtors are upset because real estate transactions are happening without them being involved in it. In Kentucky, the way the law reads right now, in order to sell real estate, you have to be a licensed realtor. What wholesalers are selling is not real estate, they're selling contracts.
Right.
Contracts legally are personal property, they're not real estate. There have been a couple of states that have passed legislation that says if you're going to sell real estate or you're going to sell a contract for real estate, you must be a realtor.
Okay.
Kentucky is beginning to maybe open their eyes and look into that. If that happens, I think it's at least several years away before we even get to that.
Okay.
And we may never get to it at all. Right now, the Real Estate Commission, when they get complaints filed that so-and-so is practicing real estate without a real estate license, if it's a wholesaler that's done what they're supposed to be doing, they're not practicing real estate without a license. They're practicing the sale of a contract without a license. I've been involved in 3 investigations so far where wholesalers were called to the mat by the Real Estate Commission.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing this wrong. We opened up their file. We showed them exactly what we were doing. We showed them their advertisements. And in all 3 of those situations, the commission said, we're satisfied you're not violating any laws.
Okay.
So it absolutely can be done the correct way.
And I know part of that is how it's advertised, right?
Absolutely.
If you get a deal under contract, the way that you advertise that deal to the general public or to your investor buyers can get you in hot water if you don't say the right thing.
Absolutely, for sure. When you see an email from a wholesaler, it better say at the very top, I am selling an assignable contract. It cannot say, I've got a property available, it's 123 Ash Street, come and see it, here are the pictures, it's for sale. No, it's not for sale. You've got it on a contract. Contract is for sale.
Okay, good to know. And so I know at KREIA there's been a lot of wholesalers come, and there's a lot of people, it's like the shiny object, the first thing people kind of hear about, quick cash, it's easy to do. My personal opinion is not easy to do.
Absolutely not.
It takes a good amount of effort and diligence and follow-up and a lot of time marketing, depending on what you're going after.
Yep.
But, you know, when all these different wholesalers are getting together and they're trying to kind of do deals together, I've seen just in the last few years this situation that is now being called daisy chaining, where you've got maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 wholesalers all getting a small piece of
Yep.
the action in this. And can you kind of explain what daisy chaining
Sure.
is and some caveats to it?
So daisy chaining is just as you described it. I get the seller under contract. I go find a buyer.
Mm-hmm.
I get a contract with that buyer. That buyer goes gets another buyer. That buyer goes gets another buyer. Our record is we've had 6 that have been daisy chained together at the same time.
Wow.
Which means that seller is happy. Wholesaler number 1, they're happy. They sold it to wholesaler number 2, they're happy. They sold it, they sold it, they sold it. And the end buyer, they're going to probably do a BRRRR, or they're going to do a buy and hold, or they're going to do a retail flip.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody along the line is making enough money that they're happy. The number 1 key in wholesaling is you must leave enough meat on the bone for the next guy. And if you don't, then they'll never use you again. I was having a conversation yesterday, as a matter of fact, with a buy and hold guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he was rattling off names of wholesalers that I'll never work with again because they're getting too greedy.
Yep.
That's the key to wholesaling. It's okay for me to take a little bit, but I better leave enough for them.
And it may not even be that they're being greedy. It may just be that they offered too much for the house,
Very well could
and
be.
then there's just not enough margin
Yep.
at all. And
Yep.
so a lot of times they're either new investors, like you were saying earlier. They've either offered too much for the property and there's just not enough meat on the bone. Sometimes they are really experienced wholesalers and they know that they're going to find somebody who doesn't care as much about making that
Yep.
money, and that might be some, you know, big REIT that's
Yep.
just buying a bunch of houses. But that's the reality in this market right now, is there's people willing to buy houses, unfortunately paying too much money for
Yep.
them. And if it's a long-term, you know, buy and hold strategy, that may work out well for them. If it's a flip, I feel sorry for them a little
The
bit.
advent of HGTV and Housing Brothers and Flip My House and all that stuff, it's built up so much excitement and enthusiasm for quick and easy money
Yeah.
that there's a lot of people in the market now that weren't in the market before, and there's a lot of people in the market that don't know what they're doing, and therefore they're driving the prices up, which is good in general.
Yep.
But it's keeping investors that understand how to do this deal from being able to do this deal because somebody overpaid,
Right.
and there's not enough money for them on the backside. Eventually they're going to fall out and they're going to recognize it's not easy money, and things will get back to the way they were.
Yeah. Hopefully they start making more reasonable offers
Yep.
and
Yep.
turn their business around that way. Anything else on wholesaling right now that you want to touch on, or did we kind of cover that?
Yeah, I think we pretty well covered it.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Well, I want to hear kind of what your best advice is for new investors, or if you've just kind of been, treading water here for a year or two, trying to find your way. Best advice from Harry Borders for a new or intermediate investor.
I am not on the board of KREIA. I've never been on the board of KREIA.
You can certainly run if you'd like.
If anybody ever wanted me to run, I probably would not run.
Oh, okay.
So I can tell you that I am objective about this. The single most powerful tool that the Louisville community has is KREIA. Without any hesitation, I can tell you that. When new people come in to see me, I ask the first question I ask them, are you a member of KREIA? And if they say no, then I say, then you're going to come to the next meeting.
Yeah.
You're going to follow along with me, and we're going to speed date. We're going to introduce you to everybody, and whoever does what you want to learn, you're going to give them your card, and you're going to ask them for a cup of coffee.
Yep.
And what are they going to say? They're going to say yes. That is by far the most powerful tool. The folks that you bring in to educate the new investors,
Mm-hmm.
they got it going on, and they understand it, and they're open-minded enough to share.
And we definitely try to focus on bringing in local people like yourself to teach people on a local level, because unfortunately we've seen a lot of national people, these big TV show guys come in and they sell large expensive packages, and it doesn't usually end up very well for that person who pays tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, it very well can, but if they don't know the local market and they don't have resources like your office here and the appraisers, the inspectors, the contractors, the bankers, that's what KREIA, I think, really provides benefit for, and it's helped me tremendously in my career.
No doubt about it.
Pretty much everybody that I work with today, I've either met through KREIA directly or from a referral from somebody like yourself. So definitely appreciate
that.
That.
I've been doing real estate investing for 20 plus years,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm fairly seasoned at it. I never make a decision in a vacuum. I never do. 100% of the time, I'm reaching out to somebody in KREIA that's smarter than me, that understands that little segment.
Yep.
And I never get billed for it. And I always feel confident going in because I got the blessing of somebody like you who can say, you might want to think about this, you might want to think about that. I've been doing it a long time, and I still ask for help.
I do too.
Everybody should be asking for help.
Yeah. I think once you kind of think that you know it all, that's usually when
Yep.
you start going downhill in some
Yep.
form or fashion. Was there anything else you want to touch on? You had mentioned Airbnb.
Yeah, Airbnb, it's a great opportunity. The rents are, as you are aware, they can be anywhere between 2 and 4 times what a regular house rental monthly would be.
Yep.
Comes with a little bit of hair. You got to understand what you're doing. You've got to understand what the needs are. You can't just stick a product out there. My rental houses are, I believe, a reasonably high quality.
Mm-hmm.
But the Airbnb has got to be a step above that.
Yep.
Don't do that in a vacuum either. KREIA's been teaching about Airbnbs since Airbnb became a real thing. There's plenty of people that know lots of stuff about Airbnbs.
Mm-hmm.
Be really careful about going into residential properties until and unless you've got your conditional use permit.
Yeah,
We've had several investors that have made the purchase, applied for the conditional use permit, and what that means is there's a permit that allows a house that is zoned for residential purposes to be used for a short-term rental.
Right.
They buy it, they apply, they fail. There's got to be a backup.
They don't get the permit, and they've already got the money invested in the
Yep.
house, and now they're like, what do I do now?
Yep.
And I know that you've taken a different approach, and I think you have 1 or 2, and they are commercially zoned properties.
Yep.
And so that is a good way to get around some of the conditional use permit requirements here in Jefferson County. Any other advice on that, or legal aspects of that you'd like to share?
No, the key to real estate investing is the more that you learn, the more that you earn.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a book on some subject that I need to know more about that's open on my desk all the time. I've got a wonderful window on the world because I sit at the end of the table with smarter than me guys like you sitting at the closing, and I'm picking their brains.
Yeah.
That's what an investor should be doing. You need to hang out with the people that you need to associate with, and get involved in KREIA. Get involved with all the little satellite organizations and opportunities that exist for free education.
Yeah, there's
No
lots of
reason to
meetups
not.
throughout the month, and we have
Absolutely.
multiple events throughout the month. So definitely appreciate your pitch for KREIA? Missing my adjective here.
I pitch for KREIA all the time.
Yeah.
And it's purely because I'm committed that that's the right answer for almost every investor that is going to look at residential housing and to a degree commercial housing as commercial properties as well. KREIA is absolutely the best show in town.
Yeah.
And it's a nonprofit, which means their real purpose is not to make money for the owners, but to make money for the members.
Yep.
Big difference.
And we try to give back as much as possible. So, well, I appreciate your time today, Harry.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
I'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.